Hey there my fellow designers and creatives, hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. This is about writing industry standard case studies. This is the ultimate guide to write product design case studies. This is going to be a long video, but knowledge packed. I'm going to be sharing tons of things that you need to keep in mind when you're writing a case study. Now I'm going to be reviewing a case study in this video, but before I get to review that case study, there are a lot of things that I want to share because it's important to have the right perspective and the right mindset when you're picking a problem statement, when you're writing a case study, and when you're applying for jobs. The perspective that I'm going to share is extremely important, so pay attention. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now when people think about getting a job as a product designer, they have a start point and then the end point. And the start point is basically writing a case study, and then the last one is getting a job. Now, the problem here is that most people think these are the only 2 points that exist. You write a case study and you get a job. This is probably the worst mindset to have, and this can be very dangerous. So what is the right mindset? What you need to understand is that there are a lot more steps that are involved before you even get a job. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this, right? So you start off with writing your case study, right? And then when you publish your case study, the case study should help you get an interview, right? The case study is not going to help you get a job. The case study is going to help you get an interview. And then you get to present your work in the interview. 99% of the times, a company will always give you an interview because they want to listen to you talk. They want you to present your work in a more structured manner rather than reading everything from your case study, because that is when they can cross-question you. That is where they can challenge you. That is where they can truly test whether what you have written and what you know is right or wrong. So case study should be sufficient enough for you to get an interview, and then you get to talk about as much as you want within the 30 to 40 minute period that you have when you're presenting your work to the recruiter or the hiring manager or whoever is talking to you. And then you end up clearing all the other rounds, right? The case study is not going to get you the job. You have to clear whiteboarding sessions. You probably have to do an assignment, probably speak to product managers, whatever it is. You have to clear other rounds, and then only you will get a job. So the point I'm trying to make is that if your case study is poor, then you won't even get an interview. You won't get to present your work, and you won't be able to clear the other rounds, right? There is a good chance that even if you present your work, you might not clear the other rounds because you're lacking a lot of skills, right? But that's a conversation for another day. This one is all about writing the case study so that you can get an interview and you get to present your work to the recruiter, okay? The goal is to get an interview, not a job. So what gets you an interview, right? Let's understand everything from a recruiter's mindset, a senior designer's mindset, a hiring manager's mindset. What do they want to see which will help them give you an interview? And I'm going to give you a list. And of course, the more boxes you check, the better the company you can reach out to, or better the company will offer you an interview. The first thing is your UI design skills. If you are getting rejected from companies or not getting interviews, there's a 99% chance that it is because of your poor UI design skills. Nobody wants to hire somebody with poor UI design skills. So make sure that your case studies are really good with polished screens, realistic looking screens. Do not apply for interviews unless your UI design skills are sorted. Next, it is the composition of your case study. 70% visuals, 25% explanation, and then 5% research. Yes, 5% research. The objective, like I said, is to get an interview. So present them with screens, which is the final output and the final result. You will get your chance to talk about the screens and your concepts and your process as much as you want when you get your interview. Until then, just show them what is required, and a case study should demonstrate that. Nobody wants to see your research because nobody has time to sit and read it and validate it. Third is the presentation of your screens. This comes down to how easy it is for me to understand the screens that you have put. Is it in a usable format? Is it easy for me to see? This is just the presentation of your screens. Fourth is text formatting. This might sound really funny, but text formatting is extremely important. If it is becoming really hard for me to read the sentences and read your paragraphs, it's just going to make me feel that you do not know how to communicate, because this has nothing to do with product design. This is basically writing down and documentation, right? And of course, I'm going to give you examples for all of this and take you through so many things that will help you understand. And finally, storytelling skills. Now, I've spent a lot of time the past few months and years figuring out how to teach storytelling. And if you can nail this, you're going to beat the rest of your competition within seconds. And there is one big reason why people don't have really good storytelling skills. The reason is that you can't tell a story if you don't know the story. It's as simple as that. And I'm going to prove that to you in this video by looking at a case study where the story is so disconnected because there are so many gaps and the person writing the case study missed out on so many things, which is why there was not good storytelling. In a good story, everything is connected to each other. Every section is connected to the previous section. Every sentence makes sense. There is a logic for everything that you say and all of them are connected. That is the most important thing. 99% of the case studies fail to connect things, which is why they don't end up having good storytelling skills. And I'm going to share with you a framework that will help you critique yourself. It's not a template. It's going to be a framework that is going to help you judge yourself and see if you're actually making sense when you're writing down your case study. So take the opportunity to watch this video, go back and fix your case studies for real. I'm not even kidding. This is your opportunity to actually sit down, look at your entire case study, tear it apart if you have to, and fix it and rewrite it again. Now, there are 5 types of projects that you can have in your portfolio, right? The first one is a new app concept. You're creating an app, and this can be a web app as well. It's not just a mobile app. An app where people can do something and it's a brand new concept, for example, right? It does not exist and it's a new concept. The second one is redesigning an app, and this mainly focuses on UI and UX fixes. Now, sometimes you can solve a lot of product problems as well and make the app even more better rather than just fixing UI and UX. But usually what I see people doing is fixing just the UI and UX by redesigning an app. The third is adding a new feature to an existing app. It could be a popular app or it could be an unpopular app, just adding a brand new feature that solves a problem. And then the fourth one is improving an existing feature of an app that already exists. You're not creating anything new. You're just fixing and improving something that already exists. Now, these 4 are pretty much the 4 types of projects that you will ever work on, whether you have a job, whether you don't have a job. Even when you work in a company, you will be pretty much focusing on either of these things. Now, I have ordered this in the order of importance and value. Now, of course, creating a case study for a brand new app concept is ridiculously hard. It takes a lot of effort. You have no base to start off with, and it is really hard. But it does give you very good returns if you do a pretty good job, right? And moving on, the second best project is a redesign. The third best is adding a new feature because the scope of the project is going to be quite smaller compared to the previous 2. You're just adding a feature that already exists to an app, so it's going to just have a couple of screens. It's not going to be a very big thing. And the last one, which is the least important, is improving an existing feature because the feature already exists. You're just tweaking a couple of things here and there. So the scope is even more limited, right? Now, that does not mean that everybody has to create a new app concept. You can pick either of the 4. The objective is to do it right. The chances of you getting a good interview will be very high if you do a new app concept rather than improving an existing feature. But I don't want to set out rules like that. If you're not very confident, start with something small, work on it, and then maybe for your next case study, pick up a bigger problem statement or a bigger project, right? Do not pressurize yourself so much because I'm going to repeat this again. The objective is to do it right. And finally is landing pages. Please remove landing pages from your portfolios right now. If you are expecting to work as a product designer and interview with product-based companies, remove landing pages right now. They are the worst projects to have in your portfolio. They do not demonstrate any problem-solving skills or product thinking skills. It's fine if you want to get a job as a freelancer. It's fine if you want to work as a marketing designer. But if you want to work in a product company on products, then you have to remove landing pages from your project. Now, it's fine if you have other good projects that you will depend on, but if you're depending on landing pages to get you a job or an interview in a good product company, you are making a very big mistake. Remove them from your portfolio right now. So this is a case study by Utkarsh, and thank you Utkarsh for sending this across and allowing me to review it on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of things over here. This is going to be a very long video, and if anybody else is interested in working on the same problem statement, you're more than welcome to do it. Like I said, it's not about the problem statement that matters. It's about doing it right. And this is a very good problem to solve and have as a project in your portfolio. So with that being said, I'm going to get started. So sit back, relax, and if you want to take notes, be my guest. Okay, Now, a quick disclaimer before I get started. When a recruiter looks at this case study, they're not going to read every single sentence. But in this video, I am actually going to read every single sentence, look at every single screen and critique everything, because you never know what people are going to be reading or seeing in your case study, and you have to make sure that everything is right, because you will be questioned and you will be challenged based on what you write and say. Okay, so designing a job application tracking and management tool for LinkedIn, a case study. In this case study, I will share insights on the design decisions I made while integrating job tracking and management tool for LinkedIn, right? So this has something to do with LinkedIn. This has something to do with jobs. Now, here is the first step. The first step is always to make your title to be impact oriented, right? That is the first tip. Now, as you can see over here, it just says designing a job application tracking and management tool for LinkedIn. Now, what I'm trying to say is that when you have a title, keep it short and crisp, right? But in the title, mention the why of this, right? So if you're designing a job application tracking and management tool for LinkedIn, a case study, why are you doing it? Right? So here is a suggestion. Here's an idea. Of course, you can use ChatGPT to come up with certain ideas if you want, but let me go ahead and see how I would probably do this, right? Of course, I'm going to spend some more time thinking about it, but here I'm going to do it on the fly. So I'm just going to come over here and type something that I think makes a little bit more sense. So I would say something like improving transparency between job seekers and recruiters on LinkedIn, or maybe job seekers and recruiters on LinkedIn. Yeah, we can just say on LinkedIn and then say a case study. Okay. So now if I do this, you can see we're mentioning what is the overall or primary metric that we are trying to solve, right? So improving transparency between job seekers and recruiters on LinkedIn, a case study. And then you can go into the details of it, right? So try to have this because it shows what is it that you're actually trying to improve for the business, right? Or this could be for users as well, right? Depending. It doesn't have to be very specific. Now, when you're mentioning this title, do not dump all the metrics over here. Pick a primary metric, one or two metrics, or in many cases, just pick one metric and try to frame a title around it. That is going to be a lot more interesting and exciting for people. Okay. Now, a big disclaimer here. If you don't pick the right metric and if it does not match with everything that you say in the case study, then that is a big reject for you. Then companies are going to reject you on the spot. So make sure you pick the right metric and you spend some time thinking about it before you add it as a title. All right. So that's the first step. Now, then we have this hero image over here. Now, if I look at this hero image, it looks fine, but the UI really isn't great. And I wouldn't completely put the blame on him. It's pretty much LinkedIn's UI that isn't, really polished. So I wouldn't really worry too much in this case. So basically the second tip is to have a really good hero image. Please spend some time, sit down and try to make a really good, realistic looking hero image. When I look at the screen, I need to be able to understand the UI. Do not use crazy, useless, fancy mockups. Keep it simple, keep it realistic. Just even one screen is fine. Make sure that when somebody clicks on the screen and they zoom it, they should be able to visually understand. Okay. Keep it minimal. Okay. So this case study is a personal project and design decisions are based on assumptions and user research and not endorsed by LinkedIn. All right, fine. So context. LinkedIn, a premier platform for professional networking and job searches, has revolutionized how individuals connect with opportunities in the job market. It serves as a bridge between job seekers and recruiters, facilitating connections, showing professional achievements, and presenting a multitude of career avenues. And it has the potential to offer a lot more. By harnessing its strength, LinkedIn can tackle issues like communication gaps and recruitment efficiency. This case study explores designing an integrated tracking and management tool to benefit both job applicants and job seekers, fostering improved interaction and streamlined processes. Now, I think this is very well put. Now, I have a strong feeling this is taken from ChatGPT, which is fine. All right, as long as it makes sense, right? It doesn't matter if it's coming from ChatGPT, as long as it's making sense and it's easy to understand the sentences, it's fine. It doesn't have to sound smart, it has to sound right. Okay. So now tip number 3 is basically using callouts and text formatting, right? I like this fact that he has actually said that, and it has the potential to offer more, because you want to take people's attention and make them focus on a particular paragraph or a sentence using callouts, right? Now, there are many ways to do this. You can italic, you can do bold, or any other formatting options. But make sure not to overdo something. If everything gets attention, then nothing ends up getting attention. So here it's very clear. There's one paragraph, there's a call out, it focuses my attention over here, and then you've got another paragraph, very clear and crisp. Now, moving on to my favorite part, which is identifying the problem statement, because 90% of the people get it wrong here. Okay, so let's read everything, and then I'm going to give my feedback. So, identifying the problem, problem overview. And another thing that I want to mention here is that the text formatting is really nice. So you can see that every section starts with a very big title. So context is a separate section, identifying the problem is a separate section. And under that, he has problem overview and why I chose this problem statement, right? So he has two subheadings under that. Very simple and clear formatting. This has nothing to do with product design. This is just basic documentation common sense, right? So keep it clear and keep it simple. He's not used bold so many places. He hasn't used unnecessary italics. So I like text formatting. That is really good. Makes it very easy for me to understand, right? Now, this is in italics. I would have probably made this another heading, which is core problem and subproblems, but that's all right. Okay. So in the realm of job application platforms like LinkedIn, significant hurdles persist for job seekers and recruiters alike. This includes poor communication, limited visibility, process inefficiencies, ultimately impeding the experience and results for all stakeholders, right? Now, this is an overall problem statement. Now, one of the things that I really like, which is probably the next step, is to take a big problem statement, or when I say big, I'm going to say probably a blanket problem statement, which is sort of the overview problem statement, and then break that down into smaller problems. I see a lot of case studies not doing this because it is impossible for you to have one problem statement. You need to have a bigger overall. You need to have a bigger problem statement and you need to have tiny sub problem statement, right? So what he's done where he split core problem and sub problems is something that I really like and is very important. This shows that there is clarity of thought. Now, just because he did this doesn't mean that everything is right? Splitting it into core and sub problems is good, but of course, in the end, the problems have to make sense. So let's understand. The central issue is rooted in inadequate communication and process inefficiencies, okay? Key sub-problems encompass lack of updates, right? Timely notifications about application status, interview progress, and outcomes are absent, right? So here you're saying lack of updates, right? Timely notifications about application status. Now I'm guessing this is email reminders or something like that. I'm not really entirely sure, but right now this is a little vague. Uncertain next steps, ambiguity surrounding the subsequent stages in the application journey. All right, this is fine. Application tracking complexity, challenges in managing multiple applications coherently, right? So now when it says application tracking complexity, what does that actually mean? What does tracking actually mean, right? Challenges in managing multiple applications coherently. What does this actually mean? Like, it's important to be very clear and crisp about the problem statement. Now here, the problem statement is very crisp, but it's not clear. What sort of challenges? Can you give me an example, right? That's what I would want to see. Challenges in managing multiple applications coherently. For example, this, right? Something for me to understand the problem statement a little bit more, right? Here it was very clear, right? Ambiguity surrounding the subsequent stages. It's very clear that the ambiguity is around the future stages or basically the rounds, right? But what do you mean by managing multiple applications? What does that really mean, right? It's very confusing. Then you have diverse recruitment challenges. Difficulties faced by recruiters in overseeing various flows for different roles and experiences. Again, what sort of difficulties? What does this mean? What do you mean overseeing various workflows for different roles and experiences, right? It's important to explain with examples. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just keep it simple. Take one tiny example and explain. Ensuring smooth communication between recruiters, candidates, and team members. Again, what does smooth communication mean? For me, I think it's very similar to these two. I don't see how this is another thing. I mean, people use emails today and people have their own internal tools. So I don't really know what sort of smooth communication you're talking about. So I sort of don't agree with most of these problem statements. Then you have confidentiality concerns, balancing information security while maintaining effective communication. I don't understand how this is a problem, and I don't know if this has anything to do with product design at all. What sort of information security? What do you mean while maintaining effective communication? So even though he's gone ahead and broken this into problems, core problems and subproblems, I'm not really convinced of these problems, right? And my biggest question is, how did you identify that these were the problems? This is the first question that you are going to get if you ever get an interview. How did you identify that these are the problems? The only thing for me right now at the moment that is making sense is these two. And another thing that you see over here is that it would make a lot of sense to break these problem statements into two categories: problems for job seekers and then problems for recruiters. That is really missing because I don't know who you're solving for, right? So at this point in time, I have two questions. Are you solving for both the job seekers and the recruiters, or are you just naming them at the moment and you're just going to solve for only one? And the second question is, how did you actually select that these are the problem statements that exist and you have to solve them? That itself is a big question mark for me. Now I'm going to read this last part because it's part of the same section, which is why I chose the problem statement. During my internship search on LinkedIn, I encountered challenges that hindered the application process. The lack of updates, uncertainty, and application management complexities prompted me to consider ways for enhancement. This personal experience motivated me to explore solutions that could streamline my job search, right? Now, ideally, I would sort of combine this with context itself, right? And talk about the product and your experience as well. And this order feels a little weird, right? So you're telling me about why you chose the problem statement after telling me about it and sort of breaking it down, right? So I would say this order is not correct, right? So you start off with basically saying that, when you are doing your internship search on LinkedIn, you faced all these problems. And then you talked about LinkedIn, which is the product. And then you say things like the case study explores designing an integrated tracking solution. And then you get into the problems, right? So here itself, the story is a little broken. The order of things are not correct. So now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to Figma. I'm going to go ahead and document the sections and the order of the sections and tell you why things are not making sense. All right. So here in Figma, I've mentioned the three sections, right? So first he spoke about the context of the product. Then he spoke about the list of problems that are there, basically the 6 problems. And for me, ideally, there are just 2 problems and not 6 problems because the other 4 don't make sense to me, or maybe they're a little unclear. And the third one is why he basically chose the problem statement, right? 3 things. And now for me as a recruiter, the biggest question that I have here is, how did you identify that these were the problems, right? How do I know that these are the only problems and that there are not more other problems that I missed out? I, as a recruiter, I do not have enough information to judge this because you have not provided me with enough information, right? And the next one is, who has these problems, right? These are like super important. And of course, we'll get into personas a little bit later. He's written down a couple of personas. But at the beginning, you need to tell me who you're solving this for, right? And splitting those problem statements into 2 categories would have been a lot helpful, right? So what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and just create another one. And I'm going to say the correct order, okay? And basically, I'm going to combine this, which is basically why I chose the problem statement along with the context, right? So combine these together. And then you can start talking about the project and the case study, right? Because when you're talking about the problem statements, you're already into the details of the project and the case study, right? So talking about this suddenly in the middle is out of place, okay? So here I'm going to say context about the product and reason for choosing the problem statement. So this would be the correct order. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight this in a green color so that you people won't get confused over here, okay? And I'm going to delete this, okay? So right now, this is basically what we have. And you can actually follow this correct order for your case study as well. So whoever is watching this video, you can follow this. But of course, we're going to go and fix this order and make sure that the story is correct. Now, these 2 questions are still persisting. So I don't know if this is in the right order or not. We're going to leave that like that is. And then we're going to move on to the next section. So coming back over here, we're going to go to the next section, which is basically setting the stage, which is defining the impactful metrics. So before taking action, I have outlined key metrics to measure progress. Right? So of course, while you're solving the problem, it has to have a user impact and a business impact. So let's understand the metrics. Okay, so let's go ahead. So before taking action, I have outlined key metrics to measure progress. So communication effectiveness, improved timely updates and fewer communication gaps. Okay. Now there are 2 questions recruiters are going to have. The first one is, how did you know that this is the right metric to track? Okay. Now you have mentioned 6 over here. How do I know that these 6 are the correct ones and that there are not more metrics that you're tracking, or that these are the right metrics that need to be tracked? Okay. That is the first question. The second question is, how are you going to track the metric? Okay. Now here he's mentioned improved timely updates and fewer communication gaps. How are you going to measure this? Right? That is a very big question. And these are questions that are going to be asked in your interview. and you need to have answers for it. Now, I as a recruiter or the person reading this case study, I have no idea whether this is even right or wrong because I don't understand what problem is being solved for this metric. You see, I'm not able to connect the story over here. Now, let's look at a couple of others, right? User engagement and satisfaction. Why? Increased engagement and enhanced user satisfaction. No, enhanced user satisfaction is fine. But why increase engagement? Engagement of what? Of using LinkedIn? And why engagement? Engagement is basically how much time people are spending on a particular platform. Why do you want to measure that? Now, maybe that is the right metric, but you haven't told me why it is the right metric. How am I able to validate if this is the right metric? And how are you going to measure enhanced customer satisfaction? How are you going to measure it, right? Then you have application progress visibility, heightened awareness of progress and reduced uncertainty. Okay. Now, heightened awareness is very subjective. Again, how are you going to measure this? Efficiency of recruitment workflows. Now, here again, right, just the way there are two sets of problem statements for two sets of users, there needs to be two sets of metrics for two different types of users, right? Or two different types of problems, right? Now, of course, some of them can overlap, right? But it's important to have the differentiation, right? So quicker recruitment processes and streamlined workflows. All right, this is fine. This is easy to measure. Quicker recruitment process is basically the time taken from somebody who applied to the time somebody got an offer letter. Very easy to measure that, right? So this is obvious to the person reading, but the others are not. Okay. Then communication enhancement, efficient communication, improved feedback loop, right? This is again, sort of very similar to communication effectiveness, right? This is just writing the same point in a different format. I don't see any difference over here, right? And confidentiality and security, data privacy is maintained, no security breaches. I don't know why this is a product design problem statement. This is if there are hacks and security problems, that's an engineering backend task. This has nothing to do with product design, right? So when I look at this, it is not making sense to me. I don't have enough information to validate whether these are the right metrics or there are any other metrics that are missing out, right? Now, this I don't even agree. I feel this is very similar to the first one. This one is fine. So probably I would just have that I would probably assume that there's two metrics, the first one and the second one. The third one, again, heightened awareness of people. I feel improved timely updates is going to solve that. So it's pretty much the same thing. And then I don't know why user engagement and how do you measure user satisfaction? I don't really know, right? So all of this is completely broken. Now, the reason this is broken and the reason the story is not making sense is because there is no connection between the problems and the metrics, right? So when I look at these problem statements, you need to take a problem statement and make it very clear as this is the problem statement because of so-and-so reason. And then solving this particular problem statement will improve this metric, right? I'm just taking an example over here. So you take the problem statement and then you connect it with the metric. You don't have to give the solution now. You can come to the solution part later, but always take the problem statement and combine it with the metric and make sure it makes absolute sense. So let's try to take an example over here, right? So uncertain next steps. So ambiguity surrounding subsequent stages in the application journey, right? Now, this is a problem statement. Now, what is the solution? I don't know, but the solution does not matter at this point. Now, solving this will improve which of the metrics? I don't know. You have to tell me which one it is for me to judge whether you understand product design or not. Does solving this problem of ambiguity lead to communication effectiveness, increased engagement, enhanced user satisfaction, heightened awareness? What does it solve? It's important to make that correlation. All right. So I'm going to come back to Figma and document this as well. So I'm going to come over here and bring this down. So I'm going to make this number 4. Okay. So this is going to be metrics. Okay. And now 2 questions I have. How are you going to measure them? And the question is, why did you choose these metrics? Why did you choose these metrics? Like I said, the problem is I don't have enough information as a recruiter to validate if these are the right metrics, because first of all, I don't even understand the problem statements correctly, right? I don't even know if these are the right problem statements or there are more, and how did you identify this? And of course, I have no idea how you're going to measure them, right? So it's important to make that connection between the problems and the metrics that are going to be impacted by solving that problem. All right, so let's moving forward. Project journey, I don't know what that means. So the design process. Okay, so basically it's talking about the design process, several stages. I mean, none of this matters, right? So In the end, what matters is did you do it right or wrong? It doesn't matter what process you followed, right? You could still follow the right process, but then end up doing wrong mistakes. And I can already see a lot of mistakes over here, right? So it doesn't matter what the problem is. So I would say remove all unnecessary information, remove all the fluff, right? This is not adding value to the case study. So just remove it. Okay. So next is establishing design requirements. I employed a user-centered research process to shape tool integration requirements. The research was divided into 3 phases. Okay, analysis of LinkedIn's current flow. Now the problem here is you're saying analysis of LinkedIn's current flow. Which flow? LinkedIn probably has like hundreds of flows. Which flow are you talking about? That is clearly missing. Then primary research involves interviews and surveys with HRs, job applicants, and competitive analysis of simpler platforms. All right. And research analysis to gauge user expectations. I don't have no idea what this means. So I'm going to like ignore that. Okay. So from what I see that you've done some analysis of some current flow, I don't really know what flow. And then primary research and interviews and surveys with HRs and job applicants, right? All right, fine. So now we have the current flow. So let's read it. First, I analyzed LinkedIn's existing job application tracking and management process, focusing on both recruiters and applicants. I don't know exactly what this means, but you have an image, so I'm going to look at that. Okay. So here it says application tracking for applicants. All right. So here again, right, I'm still confused. When you say tracking, what does that mean? Is it just knowing which companies I've applied to? I don't think that's a problem. I know which companies I've applied to. I probably would have made an Excel sheet or I would have it here on LinkedIn, right? So I am tracking it over here, right? Is this not enough? Right. So I'm not entirely sure what does tracking mean over here, right? So this seems to be like an existing screenshot. So you have my jobs and then you have, couple of things over here. All right, fine. Now, when you say LinkedIn flow, a flow consists of 2 or more screens. This is not a flow. This is one single screen. That's all. Like this is one single screen. This is not a user flow, right? So what are you trying to tell me over here? I don't know. I don't understand what you're trying to tell me here. So if you're talking about the current flow, talk about the actual user flow or the user journey in this case, right? What that basically means is from the point somebody starts searching for a job on LinkedIn until the point they get a job or basically the offer letter. There are lots of steps. That is the current flow, right? And talk about how LinkedIn plays a factor in that user flow. This one screen is not a user flow, all right? Now here it says application tracking for recruiters. So basically this is the recruiter side, all right? So I'm not going to comment on the UI because this is just a screenshot. So basically this is HR internship. This is the role. This is the company active. All right. This is fine. So the number of applicants and then there is some information over here. This is the current screenshot, but again, this is not a user flow. I'm just going to go past this because, this isn't the actual design. So now as you can see over here, it just says current flow and it's completely incomplete. Okay. So now come back to Figma and add this to the list. I'm also going to add this project journey as well because he's mentioned it. So come here to Figma and here I'm going to add another one, which is basically the 5th one, which is design process. And then the next one I have is the current flow. Now I'm going to actually mark this as incomplete. Okay. Because I don't really know. Okay. But let's come over here, right? So we have context about the product. All right. Then we have the list of problems. Okay. Then we have why I chose this problem statement, which I have removed. So anything that I've removed, I'm going to maybe just change the color of this to red so that we can understand it a little bit better. So I'm going to make this red. All right. That's cool. Okay. Now then we have metrics. So I'm going to add metrics over here. Now, is this correct? I don't know yet, right? Because I still have the question. How did you identify these problems, right? That's a part of the story that I'm missing. Okay. And I still don't have the answer to it. So this is going to be third one. This is going to be metrics. Okay. And then you have the design process. Now the design process, I would just, so actually this should be 6. All right. So this is going to be 6. Now the design process, I am going to remove it because I don't think it's necessary to talk about it. All right. And then we have the current flow, which is incomplete. Now I'm also not going to add the current flow because that it's incomplete, right? So I'm not going to add that over here, right? So only right now, only these two are making sense for me, but still the story is incomplete. Okay. So this also I'm going to remove. Okay. So let's come back to the case study. So we looked at the current flow, which is not really the ideal flow, but let's move forward. Now, primary research. Now, one of the things that I really like over here is that there are no useless graphs. There are no useless charts. And the only thing that is the most important is basically the insights that you gain. what were the insights? Just tell me that. I don't even care what questions you ask sometimes. I mean, some people care, some people don't. The right insights. And of course, during your presentation, you can talk about the questions that you asked, right? But here at this point, it's just important to understand what are the insights. So let's read that. Okay. So he's done survey results for applicants and recruiters. Now let's read all of them. So the first one. Now he's also mentioned the questions, which is fine. All right. How frequently do you apply for jobs on LinkedIn? The first thing that comes to my mind is, what is the relevance of this question? You are solving for people who have applied for jobs and who are facing problems communicating, right? That's what I understand. So how does it matter how frequently you apply for jobs on LinkedIn, right? I am going to apply for a job when I want a job. And once I get a job, I'm not going to apply on LinkedIn for another 6 to 10 months or even year or 2-3 years, right? I will apply for a job only when I leave the company, when I'm searching for another job or I get laid off, right? And that does not happen on a daily basis. So this question itself makes absolutely no sense. And here the answer is very weird. 78% of the respondents apply for jobs on LinkedIn at least once a month. So the question is asking how frequently, but then you're saying 78% respond once a month. Okay. What about the balance, 22%? What about them? Now, another question that comes into my mind is, who did you talk to, right? When you were asking these questions, who did you actually talk to? What sort of people did you talk to? Did you just randomly talk to anybody? What I'm basically asking is, where are your personas? What sort of people did you reach out to? Who are you solving this problem for is basically my question. And until now, we don't have any information about the user. All right. So first of all, this question itself is flawed. Okay. What aspects of the application process do you find most challenging? All right. So 62% find tracking application process challenging, while 45% struggle with receiving timely updates. Timely updates from whom, right? So this timely updates is still very confusing for me. And to be very honest, I don't understand what this has to do with LinkedIn, right? Because if you look at LinkedIn, the only thing that we see here is the companies that have applied to. That's it. There is nothing else for me to consume. So it's not LinkedIn's fault that the user is facing a problem here. There is no feature here at all, right? So when you say what aspects of the application process do you find challenging, this makes me feel that the process of applying to a company, which is probably filling out information, which is identifying information of the company, that is the application process. The application process ends after applying. So now here again, the question is, how do you manage and track applications on LinkedIn? Now you already mentioned here that there is this job tab and people can look at the jobs they've applied to, right? So you already have the answer. So what does this mean? And the answer is 54% of the participants use external tools due to limited tracking features. External tools like what? To track what, right? All of this is completely incomplete. And how can communication between recruiters and applicants be improved? 68% believe better communication, particularly updates on the application process, is essential. Here again, right, if you read the question is how can the communication be improved? And you're saying that 86% believe better communication is important. The question is, how can it be improved? So when I read all of these answers, one thing that comes to mind, this feels like this research is being done to validate if the problem even exists or not. So let me explain. So you're saying that 78% apply for jobs on LinkedIn once a month, which is why it is important to solve this problem. 62% find it challenging, which is why it is important to solve the problem. 54% use external tools, which is why it is important to solve the problem. 68% believe better communication is needed, which is why it is important to solve the problem. So basically, you're validating the hypothesis of the problem statement and not diving deeper and understanding more about the problems. This is why research goes wrong in almost every case study that you see online. Because research is not done correctly. What you need to be doing is doing research to understand these problems a lot deeper. You have already validated that the problem exists. Now, dig deeper into the problem. Do research to understand more about the problems that already exist. So if I come over here, I can add another step, all right, which is basically fifth one, which is basically primary research. And the question is, let me try that again. So I'm going to say, who did you talk to? Did you even talk to the right set of users? All right, so I'm going to take this and copy that and paste that over here. Oops. And then change this to number 4. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate of this. And here I'm going to say primary research to validate the hypothesis or problem statement. So I'm going to say primary research to validate the existence or basically the hypothesis that a problem statement exists, right? Now this is a step that you don't want to do at all. This is not your job as a product designer. In a company, this is the job of a project manager. This is the job of a UX researcher. They are going to validate the problem statement and then you are going to then have to dig deeper and do research to understand it better. Now, if you see over here, the order itself is messed up, okay? Now, only after you do research will you be able to understand the problems. The objective of doing the research is to understand the problems that exist. And as you can see over here, you're talking about research after you mentioned the problems. How is that possible? The research has to be done before in order for you to identify the problems. So that is why I'm saying, if you want to answer this question, how did you identify the problems? You then tell that I did research in order to identify what the problems are, right? So now when I look at this, I can reduce the opacity of this to like, let's say 20% because this has been solved, okay? But I still have a question. Who did you talk to? Who has these problems, right? Now, after research, making a list of problems, this is fine, right? So this is in the correct step, right? I'm going to copy this color and paste that over here. This is in the correct place, but I still need to understand who did you talk to, right? So I'm going to come over here and change this to 2. This is going to be 3, and then this is going to be 4, right? So we still have these 2 problems, questions that recruiters have, which is why the story is not making sense, okay? But anyway, let's continue. Now we also have the survey from the recruiter, so let's read that, okay? How do you manage diverse recruitment process? Again, what does diverse recruitment processes mean? Give me an example, please, right? And the question is, 72% use other tools due to LinkedIn's limited process management tools. So I'm assuming that in order to manage the recruitment processes on LinkedIn, recruiters using other tools. Like, I think it sort of makes sense, but I'm not really convinced. All right. What obstacles do you face in collaborating with team members during hiring? 58% experience challenges in task coordination and communication among team members. Now, this is again very vague. What sort of task management? What sort of collaboration, right? And what sort of challenges, right? And you're saying 58%. What about the balance people, right? What do they think? How do you ensure effective communication with candidates throughout the recruitment journey? 83% believe there is room for improvement. The question is, how do you ensure effective communication? But the answer is 83% believe there is room for improvement. Do you see that this is not even making sense from an English standpoint? This has nothing to do with product design. This is just question and answers, right? Are there any specific challenges related to onboarding new candidates? 46% find the transition from recruitment to onboarding less efficient than desired. Here again, the question is, are there specific challenges? And here the answer is, yes, there is. The question is, what are the challenges? Not if there is or not. Here again, this is not making sense. How do you perceive the efficiency of recruitment process on LinkedIn? 38% find it moderately efficient, while 22% believe there is significant room for improvement. Again, all of this is validating the existence of the problem statement. It's not telling me more about the problem statement. All right, so this totally makes absolutely no sense. Okay, now let's come to user personas. Okay, now it's already, the story is getting a lot disconnected. So let's come to user personas. Okay, now ideally this is not the right way to make a user persona. All right, but it's fine. Let's look at it. I prefer to use user stories. All right. And a user story basically consists of 3 things. Who the user is, what do they want to do, and why they want to do it, right? I think that's a better approach, but it's fine. Let's look at this. Okay. So Anshika is a 28-year-old marketing professional with 3 years of experience. She actively seeks new job opportunities to advance her career. Now here itself, I'm very confused. Why does she actively seek new job opportunities? It's not that she's applying for a job every single day, right? She's only going to apply for a period of time until she gets a job, and then she's not going to apply a job for another, 6 months to 1 year. So who is this person who is always applying for jobs? That makes no sense, okay? She utilizes LinkedIn as her primary platform for job hunting, okay? I'm excited to explore new opportunities because it is frustrating not knowing where I stand in the application process. Now, goals, okay? Finding a role aligned with her skills and aspirations, securing a position that offers growth opportunities, and efficiently manage and track job applications. Now, when you're making a persona, it is important to make the persona related to the problem statement. Now, we are talking about a persona solving for a user who has applied to a company on LinkedIn and is struggling to understand the application stage. These goals are before that. Finding a role aligned is not her goal for this project. Finding a role that aligns with her skills and aspirations is a totally different problem statement altogether. That has nothing to do with this problem statement. Securing a position that offers growth opportunities is, again, it's quite pretty vague, right? Securing a position is basically cracking the interview rounds, right? So that's a little, I don't know how that fits in over here. Challenges, difficulty staying updated on application progress, all right? Managing multiple applications and interview schedules. What do you mean by managing multiple applications and interviewing schedules? What is there to manage, right? It's synced to your calendar. I don't really understand. And lack of personalized communication from recruiters. What do you mean lack of personalized communication? Why does it have to be personalized? Is it communication or personalized communication, right? I don't know what this is. Now, preferred solutions. Why does solutions have to be in a persona? A user persona is about the user. This has nothing to do with the solution. So why is solutions in a persona, right? So timely application status updates. A centralized dashboard to track and manage applications. Improved communication with recruiters. Now, I'm seeing the same thing being repeated so many times throughout the case study. Improved communication, I've seen that a bunch of times. Track and manage applications, I've seen a bunch of times. Here again, track and manage applications. This is the wrong way to create a persona, right? Let's look at, this is the persona of a recruiter, right? So Alex is an HR professional working in a company. They handle a wide range of positions from entry to executive roles. Alex extensively uses LinkedIn for sourcing candidates, managing job postings, interacting with potential hires. Okay. Each role has unique environments and I need a way to streamline the process while keeping everyone informed. Streamline the process of what? And what do you mean keeping everybody informed? Who is everybody, right? The point is today, there are already plenty of tools. For example, Greenhouse is a tool that exists that's going to help you do all this. It's already streamlining the process while keeping everybody informed. It is synced to their email. It sends out reminders. So it's already communicating with them. So I don't understand what the problem here is. So goals, efficiently manage diverse recruitment processes, collaborate seamlessly, goals, right? Fine, all right. I'm not really super convinced. It's just the same points being repeated again and again. Balancing multiple recruitment workflows. Again, all of this is like very vague. What do you mean balancing multiple recruitment workflows, right? It's super vague. Coordinating tasks, fine. Maintaining candidate engagement through the process. What does this mean, candidate engagement? This is the first time I'm seeing this. This is the first time I'm reading about this in the case study. What do you mean candidate engagement? Preferred solutions. Again, solutions are not a part of the persona, right? So as you can see here, these personas do not make any sense at all because I'm still not able to understand who are you solving for. The only assumption that I can make is somebody who's just applying for jobs on LinkedIn and wants a job. That is the only persona that I can consider. But is that right? I don't know. But is that what you also think? I'm not very sure. So now if I come back to Figma, we saw primary research, and then the next one I'm going to say is personas, right? So this is personas. Now if we look over here, that it says one of the questions that I had is who did you talk to, right? And that is basically the personas. And as you can see over here, personas is all the way at the bottom. Personas needs to be above primary research because that will help me understand who you actually spoke to. And that will also help me understand who has these problems, all right? So I'm going to duplicate this, all right? And this I'm going to say, I'm not actually going to call it personas. I'm going to say defining the core users, all right? What sort of people, all right? And this is basically my suggestion, right? So I would say, or maybe I'm going to copy this and paste that over here, drop the opacity to 60 and then make this 20, right? So defining the core users, right? So I would say one of the core users is basically people who are applying for jobs on LinkedIn, right? I think that's very straightforward, right? You're solving for all users who are applying to job on LinkedIn. How frequently do it? It has no relevance. How many companies they apply to has no relevance, right? People who are applying for jobs on LinkedIn, right? The second one is recruiters who post job postings, or who post jobs on LinkedIn, right? It's a very top level user, right? Now, especially for this case study, it is very broad. It is very huge, right? So the age does not matter. The profession does not matter. It's just people who are using jobs on LinkedIn. But if you are looking at these core users, and then it would answer my question, who did you talk to, right? So here, this finally makes sense. So I'm going to copy this, paste the color. So this is the right thing, right? So you talk about context, you talk about the users in general, okay? And then this answers my question of who did you talk to, all right? So this is going to be 3, this is going to be 4, and this is going to be 5, okay? Now here, doing the research is correct, right? But I'm not going to highlight this because I'm yet to show you what is the right way to do research, right? Because here, identifying the current flow is important, but that is incomplete. So maybe what I'm going to do here is that now that this question is answered, I'm actually going to say primary research is understanding the current flow or behavior, all right? And then I can make this green, copy the color, paste that over here, and bring this back down to 60%. Okay. And then he also mentioned that he did some sort of competitive analysis. Now, this includes, like surveys and interviews, right? This is what surveys and interviews is. You do the survey and interviews to understand the current behavior, right? And then that will also help me understand my question. How did you identify the problems? Now, of course, doing primary research. But what sort of primary research? Understanding the current flow or behavior, doing the competitive analysis is going to help me identify these problems, right? And that also answers the other question of who has these problems because we define the users over here, right? So if we look at the story that we're trying to build over here, it is completely different from this. And this, as you can see, is not rocket science. It's just common sense. There is a core problem. There is some context about the product and the reason for solving the problem. You identify who the users are. You talk to the users and gain insights by doing competitive analysis or probably doing user flows and interviews to understand the current behavior. And then that will help you identify that there are a list of problems. All right, I'm going to say list of problems at each step of the current user flow. All right, you take the user flow and find problems at each step. And then once you have each problem, identify what are the metrics that you are going to measure, how are you going to measure them, and how did you choose these metrics. Now, how did you choose these metrics is going to be solved when you combine them with the problems. Because you found these 10 problems, when you solve these 10 problems, it solves these metrics. That's how you go ahead and choose how these metrics were solved. So reduce this. Now, how are you going to measure them? I don't know, right? That is depending on the metrics, we will understand that, right? So now at this point, this format is making sense, right? This order, in fact, is making sense, okay? Another thing that I probably want to do is I'm going to come over here. And for now, I'm just going to hide competitive analysis, right? Because it depends on what you're doing competitive analysis for. So this is still a bit unclear for me, the competitive analysis part. And of course, it doesn't come under primary research. This comes under secondary research, but I'm going to leave it like that for now, okay? So this is the right order you need to follow. This is the right story. Okay, so let's move on, okay? Okay, so now we have competitive analysis. There is some sort of a, matrix over here. I don't really know what this means. Like here again, right? It is quite a better way to present this is to make no red and yes green, because now I have to read everything and try to understand what is yes and what is no, right? It's simple common sense, right? So make it easy for me to understand. So now research analysis, right? So I don't know if this is a research analysis of the competitive analysis or everything else. I guess we'll go to everything. So LinkedIn is widely used for job hunting. Job seekers face communication gap. Recruiters use third-party tools like indicating a more efficient process. Communication among different stages poses challenges. Companies adopt different methods. So, I mean, all of this is sort of repeating the problem statements all over again. We've already seen this. I don't know what is new over here, right? So this is a lot of fluff that is not adding any value, right? These insights highlight the need for a streamlined and more effective job application process within LinkedIn addressing. So you're basically saying that you did all this research to identify that there is a problem. Do not validate the problem statement. I'm going to repeat this again. Do not validate the problem statement. Now, crafting a seamless flow. After meticulously analyzing the research data and unearthing key insights, the project's next phase involved designing a holistic and streamlined process. I aim to create a general flow encompassing every stage from an applicant's job search to receiving an offer. This is supposed to be the first thing that you should have done. When you speak to users, you will then understand what is the current flow that applicants follow and what is the current flow that new follow. And then you look at each particular step and then identify what are the problems that people face at each step and which steps do you want to solve. This project is about solving from this point onwards, right? Point from here. Finding a job opening, you're not solving. Applying for a job, you're not solving. Applying for a job is basically, probably discovery of the job, finding jobs. This is probably discovery and search. Then this is filling up the form, stuff like that, right? Once you have applied, this is where your project starts. So if I come back to Figma, right? You first define the core users and then you do the primary research to understand the current flow. This is the first thing that has to be done. And then you take the current flow and look at each step and understand what are the problems that are there at each step of the current user flow. Now, there may be or may not be problems at every step, right? But at which step are there problems and what are the problems at that step, and try to go a lot deeper into that, okay? And then for each of those problems, you then identify what are the metrics that you're going to pick. So then when you do this connection and when you tell a story like this, that's when I'm going to understand it, right? This is the wrong order, right? So if I were to just come over here, so we have personas and I also saw competitive analysis. Okay, so let me just check if this order is correct. So there was primary research, there was user persona, and then there was competitive analysis, right? That was a little weird. So this competitive analysis came after personas. Ideally, you probably would do the research and competitive analysis together, right? So this competitive analysis is fine, all right, because this is to understand more about the product. So I'm going to leave that over here. Although I would probably break this into another one called the secondary research. All right. And this will be competitive analysis. All right. And again, the competitive analysis wasn't really helpful, right? So I would even come here and say this is incomplete. All right. Right. And then this would be 4, this would be 5, and then this would be 6, right? So this is incomplete. This is incomplete. I'm going to remove this over from here. And then I'm going to make this also blue, right? This is incomplete, right? Personas also, I'm going to add it, but even though it's not perfect, it's fine. And then primary research, we've added that over here, and metrics we moved to the bottom, right? As you can see over here, the order is completely messed up. And here we're fixing that order, all right? So let's come back over here to the case study. Now, let's understand the current flow, right? So find a job opening, apply for a job, company reply, okay? Mostly by email or different platform. What does this mean? What does different platform mean, right? Get to know about the further steps, various rounds for recruitment. So have to check different platform for updates. Which different platform, all right? And then offer letter, right? And the other one is the company doesn't reply and follow-up message may be missed by the recruiter. Why, right? Now, this user flow itself is completely broken. And let me tell you all the things that has to be fixed over here. The first step is finding a job opening, which is fine. The second step is applying for the job, which is basically involves filling up the form, which also has to be mentioned over here, right? That's fine. The third one is the company replies, mostly by email or on a different platform, right? So you can see that email is being a primary mode of communication, and 99.9% of the time, that's what happens. And communication does happen through email, okay? And then you get to know about the other steps. Then you have various rounds for recruitment, and you have to check with different platforms. What sort of platforms, right? And what sort of updates, okay? Then it's offer letter is not a step, right? It's receiving the offer letter, accepting the offer letter, and then closing the role. That is the entire user flow, all right? And now the other thing over here is that the company does not reply. Now, if there are 4 rounds in an interview, the recruiter may not reply after probably the second round. So the problem exists both even if the company replies and the interview processes has started, and even if the company doesn't reply. The question is, what are you trying to solve over here? Are you solving only because the company doesn't reply the first time? Or are you saying the company does not reply at all? The reason I'm having these questions is because the story has not been told in the right way. Which problem are you trying to solve? Which stage of the user flow are you trying to solve? That's the biggest question over here, right? And I'm also missing edge cases over here. What if the person gets rejected? What happens after that? What if the role gets closed automatically by the company? What happens after that? You're missing edge cases. You're missing a lot of things in this user flow, right? And if you come here to the new flow, right? Let's look at this. Now, first of all, I'm not able to understand what are the changes, right? Because I have to constantly look at this and then constantly look at this, and it is so hard for me to understand what is new, what is old, what is changed, right? So this is poor reading experience. So finding job opportunities also get to know about the recruitment process. Why? Why does the person have to know about the recruitment process during the job finding stage? Why? How does the number of interviews or the recruitment process matter as a decision-making factor for a person applying for the company? If an applicant wants a job in the company, they will have to go through all the steps. Why do they have to know about the steps right in the beginning, right? It makes sense for them to know about the steps after they have applied for the job, after they have been shortlisted, after the company has replied saying that we are going to take your progress forward. That is when it is important to talk about it. If the person is not even selected, why is it important to know the recruitment process? I have a big question over here, right? So fine, you apply for the job, the company replies, and track all process on LinkedIn. Submit all details and get what details, right? And get all updates on LinkedIn. All right, this is fine. Then various rounds for recruitment and offer letter. All right. So here again, I spoke about what happens if you're rejected, etc., right? This is not a good user flow. Now, if the company doesn't reply, message the recruiter. Directly message if premium user. Why LinkedIn premium? People follow up over emails. That is the current behavior. Where is that over here? Why will somebody message on LinkedIn? What sort of problems exist that would make somebody reply on LinkedIn rather than send an email? Right? So here again, when you see benefits for applicants, enhanced visibility, streamlined organization, regular updates, this is probably the 4th or 5th time I'm reading the same thing again and again. Right? If you're talking about the current flow, it is important to understand the problems that exist in the current flow, right? So what that basically means here is you define the core users, all right? You do the primary research for the core users. When you do the research, you understand the current flow or behavior. Then you do the secondary research for your competitive analysis. This is probably a mandatory step, so I'm going to probably remove this. Then you have a list of problems that you identify at each step of the user flow, all right? And for each problem, you're going to find a solution and you're going to measure them. Now, after you do this, right, you can then come over here, which is basically the 7th step, is define the new user flow, all right? Which is basically where you come down to solutioning. So if you see over here, the current and next are beside each other. But here, before we define the new user flow, you have to first understand the current flow, identify the problems, and then define the new flow. This is again the wrong way of storytelling, all right? Now for the recruiters, right? What is the current flow? Post a job, get an applicant's response, okay? Select the required applicants, collaborate with teams internally, use various platforms for this, which is fine. And then various rounds for recruitment, and then select required applicant. Now, this is not really a fully flow, right? What about communicating with the applicant? That is missing over here, communication with applicant. Because here in the current flow of the applicant, you mentioned if the company replies or not, right? So where is that over here? Okay. And you also mentioned offer letter over here. Where is offer letter here? Are you not going to send the offer letter? Is that not a part of the user flow? Now, again, the new flow. Post a job, define steps for recruitment process, which is basically all the stages of the recruitment process. All right. This I totally would not agree on. All right. This is already done internally when you're posting the job, right? This is happening together, but it's fine. Get the applicant's response, select the applicants, collab with the team internally, assign task and collab using LinkedIn. Why? What is the problem with using the current internal tools that they're using? They're probably using Slack or Microsoft Teams or something for internally communicating. They already probably have an internal tool where they manage all the things like, the resume, things like that. And then view query. What do you mean all query? What do you mean view all query, right? And then various rounds for recruitment, all right? And then select required applicant. Again, here, where are the edge cases? What if the applicant has already accepted an offer and says, I don't want to continue with you anymore? Where is that flow, right? When you're creating a user flow, you have to talk about edge cases. So this again is completely wrong. Again, benefits for recruiter, I'm not going to read it, okay? Now, navigating to the final solution. Now here we come to the solutionizing part of it. With insights from user research and innovative enhancements, we are poised to explore a step-by-step journey that transforms LinkedIn job application. But anyway, let's delve into the applicant's perspective, unveiling a series of redesigned screens that encapsulate a seamless job application journey on LinkedIn. Now, here it says job application dashboard, okay? Centralized application tracking and direct communication empowering applicants. Now, this feels like a very title. It doesn't really say anything helpful, okay? Applicants will be able to conveniently track all their applications within a unified dashboard while directly connecting with the recruiter teams for any queries or updates. Okay. So now, as you can see over here, this is just one screen, one paragraph, and barely any explanation. Now, the explanation that I would want is to understand what is the problem that you wanted to solve, what exactly is this solution, and what is the metric that is going to be improved with this solution. That connection is what is called storytelling. So if you see over here, he made a list of 6 problems. Which of the 6 problems are you solving? All right. And that solution that you're suggesting is solving for whom, at which stage of the user flow, and what is the metric that you're improving. All these data points connected together is the actual story. And the reason it's not visible over here is because the story itself is completely broken, right? Now, which means I have to sit down and look at the screen and figure out everything, right? But usually recruiters are not going to do it. They're going to spend a few seconds on this and they're going to make all their decisions, right? But now here, I'm actually going to sit down and critique everything. Now, first of all, from a UI standpoint, this is very poor. There is so much happening over here. This is getting so much emphasis. It is so heavy on the right. There is so much blue. There are so many CTAs. There is a lot going on over here. Okay. Now, first of all, I don't even understand what is the problem that you're trying to solve. I can assume that the problem is that you're just trying to make sure that users know which stage they are in. Okay. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing here is I see that it says graphic designer, product designer, visual designer, and product manager. All right. Now, even though this is technically possible, this is not going to be a real scenario. When you're creating mockups, always make sure it's a real scenario. If I am a graphic designer, I will never apply for these roles. If I'm a product manager, I will never apply for these roles. So make sure your screen is realistic. That is very important. Okay. Number 2, you need to show edge cases and iterations. What are the other iterations that you tried before you chose this one? Because I can tell you that this itself is wrong, right? This should probably be the first iteration. This is not the final design. Now the edge cases is probably like, what if that there are more than 4 steps or more than 5 steps? Okay. How does that look like? Okay. That is missing. Number 3, don't you think when I'm looking at all the companies and roles that I've applied for, I only want to know which stage I'm in, right? For Meta, I'm at the HR interview stage. For Google, I'm at the problem solving stage. Why do I need to see these things again and again? I know that I sent the application. I know I have confirmed it. Why do I want to see all this unnecessary information? Just show this, right? And the other questions are, where are the dates? All right. If there is an assignment, when is the due date? All right. If there is an interview, when is the interview scheduled? All of those important data points are missing. So when you say track, you're not really helping me track anything over here. You're just showing me the rounds, but that's not called tracking. I need to know the dates. I need to know the times. I need to know deadlines. I need to know a lot of other information. That is important for me. That is actually called tracking. This is not solving any problem. And now joining a meeting is over here. Don't you think people would do it from their calendar app? It's 99% synced to their Google Calendar app, right? Or any other calendar client that they may be using. Why will somebody log into LinkedIn and come over here? Now the thing is, maybe you have a valid reason, but you have not told me the reason for it. I don't understand what is the problem, and I don't understand what is the point of doing it. Is this even a problem that needs to be solved? Why does submit assignment have to be on LinkedIn? It's usually done through emails. And let it be on emails. That's more effective and efficient. That's fine, right? Now, is it really a concern for recruiters and they prefer to do it on LinkedIn? Maybe yes, but that's not communicated to me anywhere, right? And then finally, we have called something called accept offer. Now, accepting offer cannot be done with a button, and accepting an offer is a legal document. So the applicant has to either physically sign it or do a digital signature or say, I acknowledge to the offer letter as a reply to the email. That is how it works. You cannot expect it to happen over here, right? And finally, there must be two steps. It's offer receival and offer accepting, right? And again, I'm going to talk about edge cases. What if the role closes over here? What if you choose not to go with this particular company, right? Let's say you got a job at Google. How are you going to tell the other companies that you're not going to progress with them? What if the company itself shuts down the role or rejects you? What happens? How does that look after that? All of those are edge cases that are missing. Now let's move on, right? Schedule page. Now here it's a very weird, right? We're looking at one screen at a time. Ideally, you need to explain it with a flow. When you create this new user flow, you want to take everybody through the stage of that user flow. Show the screens for this particular stage and say what you solved. Show screens for this particular stage and then talk about what you solved. And so on, right? So if we come down here to the next one, right? Schedule page. So here we have my jobs. Here you have schedule. So I guess this is schedule. Now here, this is basically a calendar. Right? Now, first of all, consuming this itself is a big problem for me, right? It's just a bunch of items over here, all right? So I've got 11 a.m. HR interview on 16th August and 11:59 assignment submission over here, right? Now, what problem are you solving? I don't know. What is the exact problem? Now, let me try to read, right? Applicants cannot effortlessly manage their deadlines, meetings, and schedules with a consolidated platform, significantly reducing the risk of missing any crucial events. Isn't the calendar helping enough? This is basically a calendar, right? This is a different format of a calendar, and Google Calendar is a different format of calendar. If they can miss it from Google Calendar, they can miss it over here. So how are you reducing the risk of missing any critical events? So this again doesn't make sense. Now coming down to job applying portal, right? Now this is the pre-application stage. This is before applying. Isn't this the first thing that you should ideally be talking about? So you first show it over here, which is first applying to the role. And then you can probably talk about the application status. And then you can talk about the schedule. That is the order that you have to flow, right? Why is the order different over here? This is again a break in the story. This is why it's called poor storytelling. Now, I still stand by on my main question. Why is it important for a person applying for this role to know what are the steps? And even from a UI standpoint, how does this look when there are more steps, all right? Because there is stent, there is confirmation, there is whiteboarding, there's HR, there might be 2 more rounds, there might be receiving offer letter, there might be rejecting, there might be accepting offer letter, right? All of those are steps. How is the UI going to fit over here? And honestly, when I look at this is getting so much attention. Is this the most important piece of information? Absolutely not. Now moving on to the recruiter, right? Now when you look at the recruiter's dashboard, there are so many things over here. So many buttons. I don't know what to focus my eye on, and also honestly, I don't know what to do, right? But let's read. Recruiters will gain the capability to communicate with their team seamlessly. How? How am I communicating with people over here? I don't know. Sort applicants based on their status. That is fine. That's just a sorting and filtering. Delegate tasks and manage queries within. How am I delegating tasks, right? Where do I delegate tasks? I don't see that over here. How do I delegate? Okay, and what sort of tasks? All right. So all of this again is completely broken. Creating a job page, all right? So let's see what's happening over here, right? So basically this is where you're setting up the list of steps, all right? So recruitment steps, create your personalized recruitment process, all right? So step 1 is application form submission. So this is a little weird. It says step 2 of 3, but then you're showing step 1, 2, and 3. I don't know what's happening over here. Step 2 is problem statement submission, okay? Add team member. What does this mean? What does team member mean? And what is additional link? Link for like what? What is the link for? I don't know. Step 3. Okay. So now these are the various recruitment steps. Oh, okay. So I confused it with see here, this is basic usability confusion. All right. So step 3 is interview, add team member. I'm assuming that this is I still don't know who team member is, right? An additional link. Now I'm going to assume that this team member is the person who's going to conduct the interview, right? But how will I know who's going to take the interview, right? If we are hiring a designer, there might be many designers on the team. It can be any designer. We don't know who's going to take the interview of this person when we are submitting the job posting. We will assign a person when the time comes, when we know the availability of the designer and the job seeker. We will not define who is going to take the interview at this particular stage. So this again does not make sense from a UX standpoint. And then you have, that's a wrap, right? So if you come over here, the last step is basically solutions. Okay. And here I'm just going to paste something or maybe create a new one, paste over here. So this would be step number 8, right? Where you talk about the solutions. And what you want to talk about is what is the problem that you're solving? Explain the solution, all right? What metric did it improve, or basically the impact, right? Not everything is a quantitative metric. Sometimes it is qualitative impact as well. Show iterations, and I'm going to say edge cases as well. Okay, and here just show the worthy iterations, right? Don't show all useless iterations. So worthy iterations and edge cases. If you did usability testing, show those usability tests and their insights. And then of course, you show the final design, right? Now, of course, here, this would also be the final design and this would also be the final design. But here I'm saying final design because there is some usability test. But if there is no usability test, then this itself would be the final design, right? And this is how you sit down and tell a proper story. So we'll do a quick recap, right? So you start off with the context about why you chose the problem statement, context about the product, fine. The next thing is you define the top core users, all right? So here you define the core users and then you reach out to those core users and then you do the primary research to understand the current flow or behavior, all right? And from each flow, you list out the problems that are there from the current user flow, all right? And then maybe there is a sub step I can add over here, right? So maybe I can come over here. Also define user stories over here, okay? Which is basically who, what, and why. Who wants to do what and why, right? So make this 60%. So maybe this can be a part of the list of your problems. And then you mention the metrics for each of the problems you identified at each step. Once you have metrics, you can now define the new user flow, which also sometimes can be a part of the solution as well. You define the new user flow, okay? And then you say, what is the problem you're solving, okay? What stage is the problem in that is being solved, okay? So what is the problem? What stage is it in? All right. And then you explain the solution and then what metric will it improve when you explain the solution. And this probably involves showing screens as well, right? And then you also show some worthy iterations that you probably rejected, that you didn't like, okay? And then of course, edge cases. Now I'm not going to, maybe I'm going to put this as a separate one. So there's going to be show edge cases, okay? User testing insights, if any. And then the final, and then I'm going to say, explain the adapted solution. All right. This is obviously after the usability testing. All right. But if you don't have usability testing, you probably show it over here. So this is basically the story you want to tell if you want to make an industry standard case study. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. I'll see you guys in my next video. So then take care and bye-bye.